January 17th, 1991. Persian Gulf, 2:38 a.m. The USS Wisconsin, a battleship the length of 3 football fields, sits in darkness. Inside the Combat Information Center, the air is cold, recycled, sterile, no alarms, no shouting, just the soft glow of radar screens and the hum of computers. A captain stands at his station, hands behind his back, voice barely above a whisper. Battery released, commence firing. That's it, 7 words. And then 47 Tomahawk cruise missiles launch in sequence, each one traveling 550 miles per hour toward Baghdad, each one carrying a 1,000-pound warhead, each one about to change history. But in the CIC, silence, procedure.com. Because this is what real warfare sounds like, not like the movies, like a business meeting, where the business is death. Hollywood has lied to you. In every war movie, every combat scene, commanders are screaming, fire, fire, fire. Alarms blaring, sirens wailing, chaos everywhere. But that's not how it works. Real military operations, the kind that kill thousands, topple governments and reshape nations, happen in quiet rooms, with calm voices and procedural commands. Because the modern military doesn't fight with emotion, it fights with systems. In the US military, every weapon system, from naval guns to nuclear missiles, has a strict fire protocol. Checklists, confirmations, redundancies. And when the moment comes to fire, it sounds like this. Weapons tight. Targeting confirmed. Battery released. Execute. No drama, no emotion, just ... Execution. Because the people giving these commands have been trained for years to separate the action from the consequence. To treat launching missiles the same way you'd treat filing paperwork. And that separation, that professional detachment, is what makes modern warfare so efficient and so terrifying. This is the story of 3 moments when someone said fire, calmly, quietly, professionally, and what happened next changed everything. July 3rd, 1988. Persian Gulf. The USS Vincennes, a guided missile cruiser equipped with the most advanced combat system in the world, is on patrol. The Aegis system. It can track over 100 targets simultaneously, identify aircraft from 200 miles away, fire missiles with 95% accuracy. It's designed to protect the ship from anything: aircraft, missiles, even swarms of small boats. And it's fully automated, which means when it detects a threat, it can fire without human intervention. But the Navy doesn't trust automation alone, so there's a protocol. Human confirmation required. A target appears. The system identifies it, but a human being has to say the words. Weapons free. Engage. On July 3rd, 1988, someone said those words, and 290 people died. 10:47 a.m. The Vincennes is engaged in a surface battle with Iranian gunboats. Tense, but manageable. Then the Aegis system detects an aircraft. Altitude, 7,000 feet. Speed, 380 knots. Course, directly toward the Vincennes. The system classifies it, unknown. In the Combat Information Center, the tactical action officer stares at his screen. He asks, is it military or civilian? The radar operator checks the IFF identification, friend or foe transponder. It's broadcasting on both military and civilian frequencies. Ambiguous. The Dow asks again, is it descending or climbing? One operator says, descending. Another says, climbing. Confusion, stress. The clock is ticking. The aircraft is now 40 miles away. Closure rate, 6 miles per minute. The captain is on deck. He's radioed into the CIC. The Dow gives his assessment. Probable F-14. Descending, appears hostile. The captain has less than 3 minutes to decide. At 10:51 a.m., the aircraft is 20 miles away. The captain makes his decision. His voice, captured on audio logs, later released by the Navy, is calm, measured, professional, weapons free. Engage, track, 4131. No shouting, no panic. Just for words. 2 SM-2 missiles launch. Time to impact, 90 seconds. And in the CIC silence, officers watch the screen. Waiting. At 10:54 a.m., both missiles hit. The target disappears from radar. And in the CIC, no cheers, no celebration, just splash one. Track destroyed, procedural, clinical, done, except ... It wasn't an F-14. It was Iran Air Flight 655. An Airbus A300, a commercial airliner, 290 passengers and crew, all dead. And the man who gave the order said it the same way he'd order coffee. The aftermath was devastating. International outrage, investigations, blame. The Captain Commander, William Rogers III, maintained he followed protocol. The Aegis system showed a descending aircraft on a potential attack profile. The IFF was ambiguous. The aircraft didn't respond to warnings. And in a combat zone, with seconds to decide, he made the call. But here's what the investigation found. The aircraft wasn't descending. It was climbing. The Aegis system misread the altitude data, and the operators, under stress, expecting an attack, saw what they feared, not what was real. It's called scenario fulfillment, a psychological phenomenon. You expect a threat, so your brain interprets ambiguous data as confirming that threat. The calm, professional voice didn't prevent the tragedy. It enabled it. Because when you remove emotion from the decision, you also remove doubt. And sometimes, ... doubt is what saves lives. After Flight 655, the Navy overhauled its engagement protocols. More checks, more confirmations, more humans in the loop. But the fundamental principle remained: calm, professional, procedural. Because in war, emotion doesn't just cloud judgment, it paralyzes it. And when you're protecting a ship carrying 300 sailors, ... you can't afford to hesitate, even if it means making the wrong call. With absolute confidence. January 17th, 1991, 2:38 a.m. Operation Desert Storm begins not with infantry, not with tanks, not even with fighter jets. It begins with a voice. Battery released, commence firing. And then, 52 Tomahawk cruise missiles launch from US Navy ships in the Persian Gulf. Within 6 hours, 116 more will follow, each one programmed to hit specific targets in Baghdad, command centers, communications hubs, air defense installations. And the men who launched them sat in climate-controlled rooms, drinking coffee, following checklists. Here's how a Tomahawk launch works. Step 1. Target assignment. Intelligence identifies a target. Coordinates are confirmed. Collateral damage is assessed. Step 2. Mission planning. The Tomahawk's flight path is programmed, terrain following radar, waypoints, terminal guidance. Step 3. Weapons loading. Missiles are loaded with targeting data, triple-checked, verified. Step 4. Launch authorization. The order comes from the National Command Authority, the President and Secretary of Defense. It travels down the chain. CENTCOM gives fleet commander, gives ship captain, gives weapons officer. At each level, someone confirms, authorization received, standing by, and then ... the final command, not shouted, not screamed, whispered into a headset. Battery released. Commence firing. Narration: on the USS Wisconsin, the Tomahawk weapons officer, Lieutenant Commander Doug Holbrook, sits at his console. He's 28 years old, graduated Annapolis, trained for 3 years on this system. In front of him, a targeting computer, a launch authorization code, a firing key. At 2:38 a.m., his headset crackles. Wisconsin, this is CENTCOM. Execute package, Alpha 1. He doesn't flinch, doesn't hesitate. He confirms the code, verifies the targets, and says, Roger, executing package, Alpha 1. He turns his key, enters the command sequence, and on the deck above, whoosh. The first Tomahawk ignites. Flames, smoke, a pillar of fire rising into the night. Then the second, then the third, 47 missiles, launched in 18 minutes. And inside the CIC, Holbrook sits back, sips his coffee, and says into his headset, Package Alpha 1 complete. All birds away. That's it. No emotion, no reflection. Just ... the next checklist. By dawn, 116 Tomahawks have hit their targets. Iraqi command and control, crippled. Air defenses, destroyed. Communication networks, offline. The Iraqi military, the 4th largest in the world, has been decapitated. And the US hasn't lost a single pilot, because the war started from ships 500 miles away, with officers drinking coffee, following checklists, and saying fire like they were ordering lunch. Years later, Doug Holbrook was interviewed about that night. The interviewer asked, what did it feel like to launch those missiles, knowing people would die? Holbrook paused, then said, it felt like doing my job. I didn't think about the targets. I thought about the procedure. Did I verify the codes? Check. Did I confirm the coordinates? Check. Did I execute the launch sequence correctly? Check. That's what I was trained to do. Not to feel, to execute. That's the reality of modern warfare. The people pulling the triggers, or turning the keys, or pressing the buttons, aren't thinking about death. They're thinking about checklists. And that's by design. Because if they stop to think about the consequences, ... they might hesitate. And in war, hesitation kills. 2012. Creech Air Force Base, Nevada, 7,000 miles from Afghanistan. Captain Brandon Bryant sits in a shipping container converted into a drone control station. Air conditioning, comfortable chair, 2 monitors, a joystick, a Coke on his desk. On his screen, live feed from a Predator drone flying 20,000 feet above Kandahar province. He's piloting a $4 million aircraft from a base in the Nevada desert, and in a few minutes, he's going to kill someone. Drone warfare has changed how America fights. No pilots at risk, no soldiers on the ground, just a camera, a missile, and someone 7,000 miles away watching a screen. The procedure is strict. Step 1. Positive identification. Intelligence confirms the target. Photos, metadata, pattern of life, analysis. Step 2. Collateral damage assessment. Analysts determine, are there civilians nearby? Is this a legal strike under Roe? Step 3. Legal review. JAG officers confirm the strike is justified under the law of armed conflict. Step 4. Command authorization. The order comes from CENTCOM, then to the squadron commander, then to the pilot, and then ... The pilot makes the final call. Captain Bryant has done this 60 times before. He knows the procedure. He's trained for this. But today ... something's different. On his screen, he sees the target. A Taliban commander. Confirmed. Positive ID. But next to him ... a child. Maybe 8 years old, holding the man's hand. Bryant keys his mic. Screener, I have a possible civilian in the target area. The response is immediate. Copy. Hold for assessment. For 3 minutes, analysts review the feed, check the intel, confirm the target's identity. Then, pilot, you are cleared hot. Collateral damage assessment. Acceptable under row. Acceptable. That's the word they use. Not good, not zero. Acceptable. Bryant's hand hovers over the trigger. On his screen, a man, a child, both pixelated, black and white, infrared. His sensor operator, sitting next to him, says quietly, "You have launch authority." Bryant takes a breath, and in a voice barely above a whisper, "Rifle." That's the code word. It means missile away. Not fire, not shoot. Rifle, clinical, detached, professional. The Hellfire missile drops from the drone's wing. 16 seconds to impact. Bryant watches the screen. The missile tracks perfectly. Guidance is locked. And then, flash. The screen whites out. Then recovers. Where the man was, ... there's nothing. Where the child was, also nothing. Bryant keys his mic. Impact, good hit. BDA shows to IKEA. EKIA, enemy killed in action. That's how he reports it. Not, I just killed a man and a child. But, to IKEA, procedural, clinical, done. Bryant's shift ends 4 hours later. He walks out of the container, gets in his car, drives home to his apartment in Las Vegas, orders pizza, plays video games, goes to bed the next morning. He does it again. This is how modern war works. You kill someone from 7,000 miles away. You say rifle like you're ordering at a drive-thru. And then you go home and live a normal life. Except it's not normal. Not for the people on the screen, and not for the people watching them. In 2016, Brandon Bryant left the Air Force. He'd flown over 6,000 combat hours, participated in missions that killed 1,626 people. He didn't leave because of physical injuries. He left because of psychological ones. In an interview with GQ, he said, "I was good at my job. Really good. I could put a missile through a window from 7,000 miles away. But I started having nightmares. Started seeing those faces. Pixelated black and white. Every time I closed my eyes. And the worst part, I said rifle the same way every time. Like it didn't matter. Like it was nothing. And that's what haunts me. Not that I killed people, but that I did it so ... easily." The calm voice. The professional detachment, the procedural precision. It's supposed to make war more efficient, more controlled, more humane even. But for the people who deliver those calm commands, it comes with a cost. So why does the military train people to be calm under fire? Why remove emotion from the most emotional act imaginable? Because emotion is unpredictable. Anger makes you reckless. Fear makes you freeze. Panic makes you miss. But calm makes you deadly. And in modern warfare, where decisions happen in seconds, where mistakes kill thousands, the military needs people who can execute orders without hesitation, without emotion, without humanity. At least ... not in the moment. The training starts early. Basic training, stress inoculation. You're screamed at, exhausted, pushed to your limit, so that when actual combat happens, it feels familiar. Advanced training, simulator exercises. You make decisions over and over until they become muscle memory. Command training, ethical scenarios. You're given impossible choices. Do you fire on a target if there's a 10% chance of civilian casualties? 20%? 50%? You learn to make those calls, without emotion. And by the time you're sitting in that CIC, or that drone control station, or that missile silo, you've said fire 1,000 times. It's not a word anymore. It's just procedure. But here's what they don't train you for. What happens after? Because that calm, professional voice doesn't make you immune to the weight of what you've done. It just delays it. And for many veterans, especially drone pilots, naval weapons officers, and artillery commanders, that weight comes later. Months, years, sometimes decades. It's called moral injury. Different from PTSD. It's not fear, it's guilt. Not for failing to act, but for acting perfectly. For saying fire without hesitation. For executing the mission flawlessly. For doing your job so well that you can't forget it. The military is starting to address this. Psychological support, ethics training, pre- and post-deployment counseling. But the fundamental tension remains. You need soldiers who can kill without emotion. And then you need them to process that emotion afterward. You need them to be machines in combat. And humans at home, and that switch between fire and reflect is harder than any training can prepare you for. There's a phrase in military culture, the profession of arms. It's meant to convey honor, discipline, skill, but it also reveals something else, that killing in the modern military is treated as a profession, with training, standards, best practices. You clock in, you execute the mission, you clock out, and the voice you use when you say fire is the same voice you'd use in a boardroom. Calm, measured, professional. Because that's what separates a military from a mob. That's what separates war from murder. The procedure, the protocol, the chain of command, and that calm voice, saying fire. But here's the truth that nobody talks about. That calm voice isn't strength. It's training. It's conditioning that overrides every natural human instinct. Because your instinct, when you see a human being through a targeting scope, is to not pull the trigger. Your instinct is hesitation, doubt, mercy. And the military spends years training that instinct out of you. Not because soldiers are evil, but because war requires people who can do things that feel evil, and do them anyway. For the mission, for their country, for their brothers and sisters in arms. And they say fire, calmly, not because they don't care, but because caring would break them. In 2019, the Pentagon commissioned a study on combat stress. One finding stood out. Personnel who exhibited the highest degree of calm under fire were also at the highest risk for moral injury post-deployment. In other words, the better you are at saying fire without emotion, the worse you suffer when you finally feel it. Commander Rogers, who ordered the shoot-down of Flight 65, never apologized, never publicly expressed remorse. Not because he didn't feel it, but because admitting doubt would mean admitting he made the wrong call. And in the military, doubt is weakness. Lieutenant Commander Holbrook, who launched those Tomahawks in Desert Storm, he retired after 20 years. In interviews, he's articulate, professional, composed. But when asked if he'd do it again, he pauses and says, "I'd follow the same procedures, but I can't say I'd feel the same way about it." Captain Bryant, the drone pilot, he's an activist now, speaking out against drone warfare, against the detachment, against the calm voice that makes killing too easy. Because he learned something the military doesn't teach. That calm voice protects you in the moment, but it haunts you forever. No sirens, no shouting, just one command: fire. And in that word, said calmly, professionally, without emotion, lives the entire paradox of modern war. It's the most human act, the taking of life, done in the most inhuman way, with the coldest voice and the heaviest conscience. Because the war doesn't end when the missiles land. It ends when the people who launched them finally let themselves feel it.